if you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, take the highway, that's the best. Hey, get your kicks on Route 66. Well, oh, it winds from Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles all the way. Oh yeah, get your kicks on Route 66. Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City looks mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino. Won't you get hip to this timeless tip? When you make that California trip, hey, get your kicks on Route 66. Oh, get your kicks on Route 66. Hey, hey, well, get your kicks on Route 66. Oh, hey, yeah, yeah. All of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I'll never use them. Take my arms, I won't refuse them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of me? And now all of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I'll never use them. Take my arms, I won't refuse them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on without you? You took the best, so why not take the rest? And why not take all of me? So why not take all of me? Hey, I turn to when nobody needs me. My heart wants to know, and so I must go where destiny leads me. With no stars to guide me, and no one beside me, I'll go on my way. But after this day, the darkness will hide me. Maybe tomorrow I'll find just what I'm after. I'll throw off my sorrow, beg, steal or borrow my share of laughter. With you, I could learn to with you on a new day. But who can I turn to if you turn away? Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Everyone must change. Nothing stays the same. The same. The young become the old. Mysteries do unfold, but that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. Unchanged. There are not many things in this life that you can be sure of. Woo! Except rain comes from the clouds and sun lights up the sky and hummingbirds do fly. Winter turns to spring. Wounded hearts will heal, but never much too soon. Everything must change. There are not many things in this life that you can be sure of. Ooh. Except rain comes from the clouds and sun lights up the sky and hummingbirds they fly. Everything must change. Okay. Well, if you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, take the highway, that's the best. Hey, get your kicks on Route 66. Well, oh, it winds from Chicago to LA. More than 2,000 miles all the way. Oh yeah, get your kicks on Route 66. Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City looks mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino. Won't you get hip to this timeless tip? When you make that California trip, hey, get your kicks on Route 66. Oh, get your kicks on the Route 66. Hey, hey, well, get your kicks on Route 66. Oh, hey, yeah, yeah. All of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I'll never use them. Take my arms, I won't refuse them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of me? And now all of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I'll never use them. Take my arms, I won't refuse them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on without you? You took the best, so why not take the rest? And why not take all of me? So why not take all of me? Hey, who do I turn to when nobody needs me? My heart wants to know, and so I must go where destiny leads me, with no stars to guide me, and no one beside me. I'll go on my way, but after this day, the darkness will hide me. Maybe tomorrow I'll find just what I'm after. I'll throw off my sorrow, beg, steal or borrow my share of laughter. With you, I could learn to. With you on a new day. But who can I turn to if you turn away?
to the Kids First celebration. I'm Dr. Paul Rayo, immediate past board chair of the Children's Guild. I'm thrilled you are joining us for our virtual event as we reflect on the amazing work the Children's Guild does every day to support children and families in our communities. We're also celebrating Dr. Andrew Ross as our Sadie awardee. It is truly exciting to be honoring one of our own and to have the opportunity to recognize the amazing impact Andy has made over his 26 years at the Children's Guild. This event would not be possible without the generosity of our sponsors. Thank you to each of these businesses and individuals for sponsoring our Kids First celebration. The proceeds of this event will support the expansion of our autism services and our new autism school that opened this fall. The Children's Guild has always put kids first. Tonight we will celebrate the good work that we have done. We look forward to the future success of this amazing organization. An event like this doesn't happen without the hard work of a great committee. I'd like to take this opportunity and recognize our committee members. On behalf of my co-chair, Chris Zimmerman, we thank you for all your hard work and support of children. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce the chair of the Board of Directors of the Children's Guild and my co-chair for this Kids First celebration, Chris Zimmerman.
Hello everyone, and thank you for supporting the Children's Guild at this virtual event. As many of you know, in March of this year, we welcomed a new CEO to expand on the work that Dr. Ross championed during his tenure. And now, I have the honor of introducing the new president and CEO of the Children's Guild, Jenny Lavelli. Jenny has extensive background in special education and is no stranger to the Children's Guild, having served in several positions, including Chief Operating Officer before assuming her new role.
Thanks, Chris. As Chris said, I am no stranger to the Children's Guild. I am also no stranger to the needs that our children and our communities face. As a former educator and now CEO of this amazing organization, I know firsthand the profound impact a single person can have in the life of a child. Tonight, you will hear about the visionary leadership of one man who, with many others, have expanded this organization to support thousands of children and families in need in the Baltimore and Washington, D.C. areas. Your support makes a difference for the child in our Monarch Academy Annapolis school who is struggling to read. It provides resources that reach them in the classroom. Your partnership provides families and students with supportive services for their emotional, mental, and behavioral health. This has been greatly tested and stressed over the past 18 months. Every single day, we see great need, and that is matched by exceptional generosity. I would like to highlight an exceptional group of individuals who have supported the Children's Guild not only financially, but also with their time. Without the commitment, vision, and leadership of these individuals, we would not be where we are today. Please join me in thanking our current Board of Directors and our former board members. Thank you all for your incredible service and for putting kids first. As we expand on our 67 years of serving children and families, let me share with you our vision for the Children's Guild. Our mission is to provide individualized, transformational experiences for children, families, and communities to thrive. We envision generations of empowered children, healthy families, and thriving communities. Your support will help us achieve our mission and vision. We are better together. I stepped in as acting CEO this past spring. With the support of the Board of Directors, senior leadership, and incredible colleagues, we have started a process of renovation in culture, service areas, programs, and values to align with our mission and vision. These steps, though challenging at times, are leading to great collaboration across the organization. Our renovation process will allow us to continue to expand on the foundation and incredible history of the Children's Guild. We will continue our excellence in serving children, families, and communities through consistently driving innovation and transformational thinking. As an organization, we honor and respect the individuality of each child, which is seen every day in our programs, schools, and care. As CEO, I value our colleagues' talents and perspectives in a unified culture of respect and support. We have the most amazing people in the world serving our children, our families, and in our communities. I am grateful to stand alongside them, and I thank our colleagues for their passion to put kids first every day. As an organization, we are best at making the impossible possible for children. Your support goes directly into the classrooms, therapy sessions, and wraparound services that care for children and families. Tonight, you will see opportunities to directly impact various program areas. This will allow the Children's Guild to provide better care, like in our newly opened Transformations Academy for students on the autism spectrum. Your partnership provides better classroom support in our schools and more enriched experiences that help children, families, and our communities thrive. Our future as an organization looks bright. You, as partners, board of directors, colleagues, friends, and family, make this possible. As we look forward, let us not forget the amazing work that we have already accomplished together. I would like you to hear firsthand about the impact the Children's Guild has on the lives of children and families we serve.
Since they come to the school, they like it, and they've been here for 3 years, and we have better experiences. My oldest is in 2nd grade, and then I have a pre-K, and my sister goes to 3rd grade. The teachers communicate well. They're happy to come every day and learn new things. They're excited to see the teachers. They learn many things. They take them outside. My oldest, I just got pictures from the teacher that they went outside and did some activities. And with my little one, the teacher's working hard because he's still getting used to everything. It's new for him, and he's doing good. They're working with him. My oldest child's favorite subject would be art. He likes to draw a lot of drawings for me when he's at art class.
That was quite the story. Isn't it amazing what the Children's Guild does every day for kids? I'm so grateful to have been part of this organization for so many years. I know this event is virtual, but we would be remiss not to have some serious fun. Let me kick off the virtual auction. We have many great experiences to auction off this year, and I encourage everyone to open your hearts and your wallets for this great cause. I am pleased to introduce our auctioneer and longtime friend of the Children's Guild, Jonathan Melnick of Melnick Newell Auctioneers. Now's the time to go grab a snack and a beverage and join us as we honor Dr. Andrew Ross.
And when I was a kid, you didn't watch TV at dinner, ever. Except Sunday nights at 6 to 7, you watched 60 Minutes. We all watched it at the table. We ate dinner at 6:30. And after every segment, I mean, there were plenty of things, if you remember, that weren't necessarily kid-friendly, but after every segment, so Kate, what do you think? You'd be in the car listening to NPR. So Kate, what do you think?
He is an idea person. He believes in the power of ideas to change people's lives for the better.
He's got this naturally inquisitive brain and a questioning, but I also what he's got, I think the way he processes information is very different from us all.
I think the creativity in himself is what he sees in all the children, that he knows what the possibilities are.
So you'd have a problem, whether that was in life, whether that was at home, whether that was at work, and he'd be thinking, is there a better way to approach this? Is this, we're all starting from this group of givens, but has anybody actually vetted the givens? Are they really true? You know, and so he'd find a slightly different angle to look at things. And all of a sudden, you'd have not an easy way, but a way through to find, to get to where you wanted to be.
I've served in the Air Force. I've worked for many different organizations. And as far as I'm concerned, he's the greatest leader that I've ever seen or ever been involved with.
I think all I am is an arranger. That's the way I see myself, is that I could figure out what's needed and who has the talent and when to really get involved myself and when really to get out of there.
I know how difficult it is to be a CEO of a large and small organization. It's a very lonely place. And I think one of the key things with Andy is he always has that smile,
Absolutely magnetic personality. I think that the thing I will always remember most about Andy is how he draws people to first the organization he's working for. I first met him in 1985 in Council Bluffs, Iowa. I went to work for the organization he was CEO of called Children's Square USA. And I was drawn to Andy and the power of his personality. And it's this unique combination of just being a kind and decent person, but he has an infectious spirit.
Boundless energy.
There is nobody with more energy.
Inspirational.
Creative. He's always curious. He's always questioning.
He has tenacity going to bed.
He has a wonderful spirit.
Determined.
He is an ongoing tour de force.
Andy was good to everybody. Andy did not expect no more, no less from anyone, no more than he gave of himself, but he was always at it. He didn't mind getting down, scrubbing a scenery or whatever. He was just a real person. And from his position, he didn't have to do that, but he did.
Andy was able to get certainly me, and I think many others, to take risks that otherwise, or by ourselves, we wouldn't take.
I was from education and he was from social work. And we realized that neither of us were satisfied with what our professions were doing relative to kids and particularly challenging students. So we just began to talk and work, and at that point we were at the Christian Home Association, and we began to modify their programs to fit our vision of a program that was founded on social justice and on experimental education. That is, education tied to the experience of each of the individual children.
Well, I came across transformation education in 1985, back in Iowa first, and I was a supervisor in a group home that was in the organization Andy was CEO of, and he began practicing transformation education at that time. And I love to tell the story of how I was one of the biggest opposition forces that he had there against transformation education. I'd been trained at Boys Town. I was familiar with lots of traditional practices, believed in them, and utilized them. And here comes someone who I liked, as I said, magnetic personality, but who I thought really was not in the norm.
It's one thing when you are trying to lay something new onto an industry, but in our case, you're trying to change the very nature.
For the first 18 months, I was lucky to survive the Children's Guild.
The most unique feature of transformation education is initially it sounds, again, kind of outside the norm, like outside the guardrails, outside the lines. Andy's talent is to get you to try it.
You have to have a true spirit in terms of trying to make sure that what you're not really trying to be another one just competing for something for yourself. You really have to sell to everybody that this is really going to be, it's really going to be good for these populations. But what's good for those populations in the long run, that's where the growth and everything else is going to happen for you too.
And once you try it, there's where the transformation comes, because you realize, boy, things should have been like this all around, all along. And it was my reluctance to try that was the barrier.
it may not look like you're going to win, but there's another win for you in there, even if it's a lot to learn.
It was something that was never on their radar. Understandably so. It was a new state law in the state of Maryland, and they were really a special ed, child serving organization at the time. But in his visionary leadership, he just embraced it right away. And I remember him bringing me to meet with some of his boards and to try and sell this idea, which at the time probably was way outside of the scope of experience and skill set that the organization had.
So it was a very exciting time, but I would also say it was a very stressful time. And it was exciting because there were a lot of really talented people that were involved in the process. And also, as I said, it was a new source of growth for the organization. And the other thing that it allowed was for transformation education and a lot of the ancillary ideas that went along with it to go more mainstream, rather than just being more or less in a special ed setting.
In retrospect, it's really been foundational to the broad development of the organization. And the organization has developed really impressive charter school portfolio that's well regarded in the state of Maryland and in the District of Columbia.
Boards are mainly dealing with money, and boards are, you could be on the board of any type of organization. It's easy to lose sight of the mission. What are we trying to accomplish? But it was always anything that came up. Does it help the kids? What does it do for the kids? Not does it increase our revenue, but what does it do for the kids?
I've been interested in apprenticeships for a long time and had worked with some folks in Washington to bring experts over from the United Kingdom who had done a great job creating and expanding apprenticeships. And so I invited Dwayne Arbogast and Andy and Steve and other people it was about a day and a half conference to hear about what they were doing in the UK. And I was trying to get people here in Maryland interested in doing the same thing. And literally out of that, there were probably 40, 50 people who participated from Maryland. And not only was the Guild the first mover, out of that group, they were the only mover. Everybody listened to it, thought it was very interesting, and then went back to business as usual. In contrast, Andy and the Guild said, we're going to do this.
Apprenticeships are really a very important part of the future of education.
A lot of nonprofits, do studies and have consulting groups and have roundtables, and they think about problems, and then sometimes they try to address them. Andy's approach is much more to see an opportunity, like an entrepreneur, and go for it.
And I want every hiring manager across the US to be able to pull a job description out of the drawer and then ask themselves this question: I wonder if an apprentice can do this job. It's a big ask. But but to go back to Andy for a second, can you imagine Andy when he first came here thinking, I want America to change the way it cares for and looks after its kids? It's a big ask. And unless we've got that big ask, what we'll do is we'll stop short of doing what we're doing.
If you're not willing to fail, you can never succeed. And I think Andy understands that intuitively. And so he's willing to take risks. And, lots of these risks, the ones I've worked with him on, apprenticeship, the Trans Ed Academy for Working Students in Montgomery County, building buildings better, all kinds of things. They're working, and they're not just working because they're good ideas or because Andy had the vision to say, let's try it. It's also because he hired good people.
You bring in what I call odd ducks, and these odd ducks don't think like regular ducks. Well, even if they're smart and they don't think like regular ducks, it doesn't mean that they're going to be liked even by the other odd ducks. So there's always this kind of rub. But that rub, it's friction. It's the kind of friction that makes music, or can make disaster.
You like that rub?
And I like that rub because in that rub is the answer.
And it's his belief that it's the exchange of ideas, the rub of ideas, right, that leads to the best idea. And I can't imagine Andy ever not doing that. And the beauty of Andy's legacy is because that's the core belief. Those ideas continue in my mind all the time. And I often think this would be an interesting conversation to have with Andy Ross, because I know he'd have a different perspective or could help me hone mine.
Andy's imagination knows no limits. He has no confines in his thinking, and he just breaks through boundaries with every thought. For Andy, a hallway could transform into an interactive brain path that you would walk down and interact with, and it would take you through how a middle schooler formed a memory of eating a chocolate chip cookie. And this was really exciting. All of these ideas that Andy had, to put them into a visual context as an artist, this was just, incredible freedom of how to interpret this.
I used to tell people constantly, just come visit. Whatever context I was speaking to these people, whether trying to get them to the board or whatever, just come to the campus. I'll meet you at the campus anytime you want, and I'll take you around on a tour of the building. And once somebody does that, and you see the kids and you see the teachers, that's just the school setting.
This is such an incredible legacy of how schools can be designed and how the vision for what education can be through just this experimental experience is so unique. It's so transformative.
For many cultures around the world, storytelling is the way that the world is taught to young people. And so in the Guild, there is a tradition sort of passing down stories of, as you said, of culture, passing down stories of the history, passing down all kinds of traditions in the Guild through story. And of course, the cabaret is a great example of that, because it's just a huge story told about a person's life.
With song, with dance, with set design, lighting, special effects, and Sadie Ginsburg.
Dr. Ross writes the script, he edits it down, he works on it.
Many scripts, many 4-hour scripts that had to be condensed.
And I think the greatest thing about it is that it's mostly performed by Guild staff members.
All we could show them was just how talented the teachers were, and the social workers were, and the maintenance man was, and everybody else. We would just start doing these shows, and the staff couldn't wait to participate in them.
I'm mouthy, and lots of times I have a potty mouth, quite often. And he made me realize that who I was didn't make any difference, and he was telling me, in a sense, whatever you do, don't change, keep being yourself. And so that had an impact on me, because he allowed, not out in public and all, not with the children, but he allowed me to talk the way musicians are, because I worked with men all my life in music, that's what I did. So he allowed me to be myself, and I appreciated that, because a lot of people won't do that.
Well, if I get personal, it'll make me get a little teary-eyed, because Dr. Ross really believed in me when I came here to the Guild. And he allowed me to develop a relationship with the performing arts and kids at Baltimore City, and very supportive of any needs that we needed for the children.
He really believes that everybody has a talent, and he loves tapping into that. So, but yeah, no, I feel very fortunate that my dad's been a part of the Guild, and he's opened the doors of the Guild to our family.
He's taught us all about the importance of being flexible and being open to new things. And so that has, that's infused everybody's life. And I think the other thing about Andy is that he he pushes everybody to be more than they think they can be. And then they're always surprised, including me, at like, oh, I never thought I could do that. I never thought I could be that. But Andy always has a vision of what that might be. And so that comes out all over the place.
He saw how changing your education can change your life. And so again, not easy for him, but he took the steps necessary. Once he knew that, he wanted to share that with as many people as possible, pull as many people up, let them have a fair shot, let them make changes in the world, because now they have the opportunities to do so. And I think that's the legacy that he has, is all the people he's touched. So the staff members that he has impacted and empowered them to fulfill their dreams, giving them permission to have the dreams again, and that, hey, you may be able to make this happen. The kids that he's directly impacted, but not only them, their families, their immediate families now, and then we won't know the impact, because then those people will have kids and grandkids who will talk about what they learned. And yes, and it will just flow out from there. It's going to be generations till we know the true impact of what he's done.
You gotta understand what you really like doing. And if you can turn that into a career, you're never going to work a day in your life, And I don't think that's anything new from me. I think a lot of people know that, but to me, that's really the secret. Do what you like, and somehow it always seems to work out, and you always feel like not only did you make you really achieved something, but you also had fun doing it.
Tonight, we are excited to be honoring one of our own, Dr. Andrew Ross. His leadership and innovation have directly impacted the lives of the thousands of children and families we serve every day. It is hard to believe that when Andy came to the Children's Guild in 1995, we only had 2 special needs schools, 1 group home, and a $6 million budget. Dr. Ross's visionary leadership, combined with his passion to make lives better for children and ensure they are prepared for the future, have been extraordinary. Over the past 26 years, under Dr. Ross's leadership, the Children's Guild has opened 7 schools, established a treatment foster care program, expanded our mental and behavioral health services, opened an apprenticeship program, and spread our Kids First message across the country. He did all of this without losing sight of the mission to serve children first. Because of his leadership and vision, today, the Children's Guild is an $80 million a year operation, serving more than 6,000 children in Maryland and Washington, D.C. When I think of what Dr. Ross's years at the Children's Guild will be most remembered for, I believe it will be his unwavering commitment to caring for the whole child, a philosophy of care that puts the needs of the child at the forefront and creates a culture of learning to meet the individual needs of each child. It gives me great pleasure to present Dr. Andrew Ross with the 2021 Sadie Award and to thank him for his 26 years of dedicated and loyal service to the Children's Guild. He truly embodies the spirit of Sadie Ginsburg by having made the impossible possible every day for the children and families we serve. Joining us tonight from our Brooklyn campus is Dr. Andrew Ross.
Chris, thanks to you, our honorary chairs, and the planning committee for this wonderful tribute tonight. And to receive the Sadie Award and be listed in the company of the other awardees is indeed a great honor to me. Leading a children's agency is a team effort. To all the dedicated board chairs who understood the changes I was trying to make, I thank you for your support and getting me over the tough times. Your vision helped the Guild to be where it is today. To Susan McFall, my executive assistant, who assured the face of the Children's Guild radiated professionalism and competence. I couldn't have done this without you. To two multi-talented CFOs, Dr. Nizam Katani and Steve Baldwin, who instilled confidence in the banks to fund the Guild's growth and ensure our financial success. To Frank Cross, who spread transformation education nationally and internationally, which provided us a professional reputation in children's services and education. To Kelly Spinell, who instilled confidence and expertise in our special education schools and dedicated herself to deploying neuroscience in our programs. To Richard Walker, a senior VP who helped me reimagine the Guild throughout the 90s and at the beginning of the 21st century. To Kathy Lane, who managed and refined our charter schools and made it possible for us to be engaged in school-based mental health programs in public schools so that Elizabeth Garcia could use her clinical and management expertise to serve several thousand children a year. To Jenny Lavelli, who made the trains run on time, rebuilt HR, and assured compliance as COO. To Paul Champion, who was the first to successfully deploy non-traditional apprenticeships in Maryland and throughout the U.S. commercially. To the Towson Town Rotary Club, who helped me promote the Guild throughout the community and provided us with some of the top women business leaders in Baltimore: Suzanne Pierce, Brenda Dandy, Jane Brewer, and Diane Eaton, and then recruited other top business leaders such as Marie Knoplock and Bonnie Hennison to the board. These women were responsible for leading the effort to establish the autism program at the Guild, make our charter schools possible, and they also played an important role in our fundraising efforts, helping to identify several of our SADE awardees. And to all the rest of you who played such a critical part in the Guild's growth over the years, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Anyone who walks into a Guild building is mesmerized with the art that our architect Randy Sovich described as an environment that stimulates the intellect, excites the senses, and touches the emotions. This would not have been possible without the creativity of Randy and artist Nancy Scheineman and her art crew, the Guild's design team in Clare Turberville, who had the ability to make the Children's Guild a center of hospitality for all our visitors. The artistry was not limited to the visual arts, but included the musical talent and showmanship of Dottie Timberlake and Al Saunders, and the theater know-how and connections of Vicki Smith and Susan Stroop. The talent and spirit of the members of the Guild staff was demonstrated when the public witnessed them teaching on stage through singing, acting, and dancing. I thank Ray Fant, who played the key role in developing me as a young professional during the 12 years I worked at Belfair, and my longtime thought partner and collaborator, Gary Grenier. Their ideas and expertise had so much to do with the Guild's success. Running a children's agency is a 24-hour-a-day grueling job. Thanks Kate and Michael and Emily and George for your understanding and devotion to me, and for providing Spencer, Amelie, Rosa, and Augie to enrich my life. Time with you and your families always recharge my batteries, and my brothers, Larry and Vince, and my sister Marilyn, and beloved Mitch, you always remind me of the resilience of the human spirit and what a blessing it is to grow up in a loving family. I thank Diane, the love of my life, my best friend, a social worker and a mother loaded with wisdom and ideas and the perfect sounding board. Mythologist and philosopher Joseph Campbell said, "We must be willing to get rid of the life we've planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us." I planned to be a psychologist, but ended up a social worker. The life that was waiting for me as a social worker was full of meaning, challenge, and fun. It exposed me to theater, art, business, government, and travel, and provided the opportunity to meet and work with many talented people. It provided me the opportunity to impact thousands of lives and to see the face of God in so many acts of kindness and generosity, and to understand what is possible in life. The gift of time, expertise, and encouragement so many of you provided me helped feed every part of my soul. An experience what George Bernard Shaw observed to be the true joy of life, that of being thoroughly used up for a purpose recognized as a mighty one. Because the harder I worked, the more I lived. For this, I will always be grateful. I thank you all for being here tonight and supporting the Children's Guild, and I will truly cherish this Sadie Award, knowing that together we made the impossible possible.
As we conclude our program, I want to again thank you for your generous support. It is not every day that you have the opportunity to directly change the life of a child. The Children's Guild is a truly amazing organization, and your partnership will allow us to continue in Dr. Ross's legacy as we grow and support the many children and families that we serve. But I don't want to be the only one to thank you, so let me bring in a few other voices.
Thank you, Dr. Ross, for the murals on the wall. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for the gym. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for helping making the playground. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for music class. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for being you.
These students are what it's all about, folks. This is why Andy Ross gave 26 years in service to the Children's Guild. This is why we have been here for 67 years. Your support tonight and going forward will allow us to be here another 67 years. Let's put kids first and make one final gift to the Children's Guild before we conclude the event. Now, I don't want you to think the evening is over just yet. We have one last surprise from our teachers and staff. The Children's Guild cannot do what we do without the amazing individuals who show up each day in our programs and schools to support kids. Please enjoy this encore presentation as they thank Dr. Ross with their musical talents. Thank you for joining the Kids First celebration and for your support of the Children's Guild. Good night.
Okay, everyone, let's get this tribute to Dr. Ross's early life and career before the Guild started. Places, everybody, action!
Andy Ross wasn't born a social worker who would spend his life persisting in the transformation of education. Like all people with the calling, his was forged through many parts of his life, both the lessons he's learned early on and his own drive and tenacity to live a meaningful life of service.
Andy was born into a warm and caring family in a working-class Italian neighborhood. The family's name was originally Rosa, but like many immigrant families, his grandmother changed the spelling to fit in better.
However, his Italian culture showed up in other ways. There were always aunts and uncles and cousins around and grandparents who lived with his family. They were Roman Catholic, and Andy took deeply to heart the lessons of Jesus about how people should treat each other. So, let's do a Tarantella!
And then there was the mob.
One of Andy's most vivid memories was his grandfather's funeral, when several long-lost cousins in shark-skin suits showed up to pay their respects. Cousins that his grandmother had cut ties from, who were unmistakably part of a different kind of family from the old country.
It was an early lesson for a young man that in a world full of adults, it was still filled with people that were so worried about themselves instead of others.
Now, Andy also learned this lesson when black families started moving into the neighborhood. You see, Andy loved the new friends that he was making, but a lot of adults in that neighborhood just couldn't get on board with the idea of people of another race living on the same street.
And there were times when the family had no money. You see, Andy's dad worked for a company that suffered from strikes and rolling layoffs.
These were hard enough lessons for young Andy to learn that a seed was planted in his mind about what he might want to be when he became an adult.
Andy learned more and more lessons as he grew up, that even as a mediocre football player, tenacity and teamwork will take you far.
That even if you have leadership ability, you still have to put in the work in order to lead.
And that education lacks equity and justice. When Andy got to college, he struggled because his education didn't put him on equal footing with the other students from wealthier backgrounds.
But that didn't stop him. He became interested in psychology, philosophy, and social work. And that's where he met
Diane! Diane was everything Andy thought he was not. Beautiful, talented, refined, even though her family was doubtful of this working-class Italian boy, Andy knew she was the one. She inspired him to be his best.
I just got word from admin, and we don't have time for a whole cabaret. We'd be here all night. We have to speed this up.
But Dr. Ross did so many things with his career. I mean, look at this script. How are we going to get through this?
I don't know, but the clock is ticking.
Class, class.
Yes, yes.
Class.
Yes, yes.
Guys, come on. Didn't Dr. Ross help us make the impossible possible here at the Children's Guild? Isn't Dr. Ross's whole story about persistence and tenacity in the face of obstacles? We got this. I have an idea. Just follow my lead. We're going to tell Dr. Ross's story the way he would want it to be told, with musical theater.
Okay. Take it away, Ms. Russell.
Now, where did we leave off?
At Dr. Ross's first big job after college, working as a social worker in St. Paul Homes with that priest who believed he was clairvoyant, but as it turns out, he was really mistreating the kids.
Really? Okay. I got it.
While he loved his work,
He couldn't ignore the truth that the right good reverend wasn't so good all along. And so he went and told the boy that things are bad here, because Andy, he knew right from wrong. The board all said, get out, you're rocking the boat. And the people all said, get out, you're rocking the boat. We know exactly what goes on, but all we want is to stay afloat.
Get out, you're rocking the boat.
Dr. Ross did what was right and reported them to the state. And the state shut them down because it was true.
Okay, I get it. So his next job went really well. It was at the Belfair Jewish Children's Bureau in Cleveland. Let me see. He learned a lot there, developed his ideas about justice and transforming children's education. Ooh, he got his doctorate, started applying for executive positions so he could really affect change.
Get on with it.
Okay, here we go. So he applied for all these leadership positions and everyone liked him, but they needed different people in those roles, something like this. And he tried his luck with the JCC Syracuse and the Juvenile Justice Center in Cleveland and Bowling Green and Kalamazoo, but he always left empty-handed.
Boy, you all said get out, there's nothing much we can do. Yes, the people all said get out, it's not the right place for you. For the world is ever changing, and it's not the one we can promote, so not now. Not now.
Okay, what's next? The mob.
Again?
Yeah, so Dr. Ross is pretty desperate. He gets this call from a guy who can make things happen. And it turns out this Teamster boss is rather impressed with Dr. Ross's credentials. He wants Dr. Ross to head up the Human Resources Department. After all you gotta do is smile, shake some hands, but... And he remembered back to his grandpa's funeral with limos and guys in sharkskin suits. And he asked, what happened to the last guy in his job? And the fella said, he took a swim.
And his conscience said, beware, you can end up underground. His conscience said, beware, these guys ain't fooling around. No paycheck would be worth a dime if you guys has got you by the throat. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out, we're riding this boat.
Was Dr. Ross seriously going to be in the mob? Wow. Wait. Okay. So it looks like, fortunately, he got another call just in the nick of time, offering him a job as the president of the Christian Homes Association in Council Bluffs, Iowa.
Oh, I know this story. We're gonna have to switch songs for a second because this is a whole thing. That place, which Dr. Ross renamed Children's Square USA, was where he tried out a lot of his radical ideas about transforming kids' lives. And you all know Dr. Ross.
Yep.
So, pretty soon, this whole town thought that he was a fancy outsider who was trying to change the way that things have always been done, which he was, because they needed to change.
I think I've got an idea, but we're gonna need some help. Where are those dancers who are always in the cabaret? Vicki Smith's kids from Stageworks? Oh my gosh, here they come. Ow. Friends, we're at the part of the story where Dr. Ross is causing trouble in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and I'm gonna need a sidekick to help tell this part of the story.
Say no more. I've got you covered.
Great. Okay, good people of Council Bluffs, gather around. Lend me your ears.
Friends, you are either closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are unaware of the caliber of disaster indicated by the presence of an outsider in your community. Well, you got trouble, my friends. Right here, I say trouble right here in Council Bluffs. Why, sure, we love giving, mighty generous, I say. We're always mighty glad to say it. I consider that the hours I spend volunteering my time are golden. Helps you cultivate character and a work ethic and a pure heart. Do you ever know and try to save a juvenile delinquent who just can't be helped?
Well, just as I say, it takes judgment, brains, and maturity to deal with this town's hoodlums. I say that no PhD can tell us we're doing it wrong, and I call that change. First big step on the road to the depths of degradé. I say first, modernized, renovated buildings, then gangs from Chicago. And the next thing you know, those ruffians are ballroom dancing in well-fitted suits and listening to some etiquette queen hearing her tell about lobster eating. Not wholesome local pork, no, but a lobster from the elite East Coast. Like to see some stuck-up ocean bug pinching out our local pigs, make your blood boil, well, I should say. Now, friends, let me tell you what I mean. We got historical, habitual, harmonial, heroical, undisputed standards for our town. Standards that mark the difference between tradition and trouble. Trouble from afar, and that rhymes with R, and that stands for raw. Friends, fancy ideas are the devil's playground. Trouble. Right here in Council Bluffs. Right here in Council Bluffs. It comes from afar, and that rhymes with R, and that stands for raw. That stands for raw. We've surely got trouble. We've surely got trouble. Right here in Council Bluffs. Right here. Gotta figure out a way to let this clown know we're the boss.
Gonna have trouble. People of Council Bluffs, heed the warning before it's too late. Listen for the telltale signs of corruption. Do the delinquents that come here from out of town act like they deserve as good a health care as upstanding citizens? Do they live in better conditions than your own children? Do they eat better food? Are they getting lessons in etiquette so they can eat at nice restaurants? Are certain words infiltrating their conversations? Words like systemic inequality and transformative education. If so, my friends, you got trouble. Right here in Council Bluffs. Right here in Council Bluffs. It comes from afar and it rhymes with R, and that stands for Ross. That stands for Ross. We surely got trouble. Right here in Council Bluffs. Right here. Remember the trough, the Mormon Bridge, and the Golden Cross. Our children's children.
Oh, we've got trouble. We're in terrible, terrible trouble. Gotta show these drunken sailors we're the boss. We're the boss. Oh yes, we got trouble, trouble, trouble. It comes from afar. Gotta rhyme with R. And I stand for Ross.
So then after all of that, what happened?
Eventually, it was clear that Council Bluffs wasn't ready for all the transformation that Dr. Ross was proposing, so he left.
Well, they kind of ran him out of town.
But of course, a lot of the changes his team implemented are still used at Children's Square USA. It's true. Google it.
After that, Dr. Ross moved to the East Coast. He worked for several organizations, but found himself in some tough circumstances where organizations wanted him to transform the way services were provided to kids, but they were not willing to do it the way Dr. Ross knew it needed to be done.
Do we have time for a quick ballad about that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, how about we bring in some guest stars? Take it away, Bobby Smith and Dottie Timberlake.
And now the end is here, and so I face the final curtain. My friends, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway, but much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each chartered course and every step along the byway, much more than this. I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way.
That was amazing. All right, everybody, we got to wrap this thing up. Let's wrap it up. Places for the reprise. Here we go.
You see, this wasn't the end of the story. Dr. Ross had a setback, but then
he got a call to come to Baltimore to take the helm of an organization called the Children's Guild, an organization that had a great history but needed some help growing into the future.
And that is where we're docking this ship, with Andy coming to Baltimore with his family, going to the Children's Guild, and bringing all of his transformational ideas. Andy got the call from Children's Guild in Baltimore to bring his visionary ideas down their way. And though some left, most got on board the A train. That's when Andy knew he was there to stay. He was there to stay. And he said to the guild, look out, I'm rocking a boat. And he said to the guild, look out, I'm rocking a boat. Educational transformation is the concept that we will promote. Look out, I'm rocking a boat. Look out, he's rocking, look out, he's rocking a boat. Look out, he's rocking, look out. He's rocking the boat.